Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Everything Everywhere All at Once. Starring Michelle Yeoh, Stephanie Hsu, forgive me if I said that wrong, Ki Huai Kwan, Jenny Slate, Harry Shum Jr., James Hong, and Jamie Lee Curtis, directed by Daniel Scheinert, forgive me if I said that wrong, and Daniel Kwan. Now, before I get into this movie, I have seen it on IMAX about a couple of days before it came out limited release. And I'm going to just say now that at the time, I thought it was fine, but it was confusing and weird. But it has to take multiple viewings to enjoy it even a little more, which I have been doing over the past year that after it came out. Let's see how I like it now. Let's get into it. Evelyn Wang, played by Michelle Yeoh, owns a laundromat with her husband Wayland, played by Ki Hoi Kwan, who's going to win the Best Supporting Actor for this role, as I will see him again when I get to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom later this summer. While he wants a divorce because she doesn't pay any attention to him nor her daughter, Joy, played by Stephanie Hsu, forgive me if I said that wrong, but focuses on the laundromat, and her father Gong Gong, played by James Hong, while Joy is dating another girl named Becky, and while having lunch with the family, she gets a laundry order call by Debbie the dog mom, played by Jenny Slate, and Evelyn invites the customers to a Chinese New Year's party they're having that very night. And what sounds weird is there's a multiverse in this movie where Wayman acts like a complete different person, as we'll see it later in the movie, while Evelyn insults Joy when she leaves the laundromat because she's thinking of getting going their own separate ways. And this is so far a very depressing opener. But the good news is we get to know these characters from the first frame, which I appreciated that. The Wings, as well as Gong Gong, goes to the IRS and have a meeting with Deirdre, or whatever the hell her name is, Barbeardy, or Beardy. I don't know if I'm saying that fucking name right. Played by Jamie Lee Curtis, while Wayman gets Evelyn to the multiverse by remembering her past, which sounds depressing as Wayman becomes the different person, starting in the elevator and going back and forth from being Wayman and the different person. And he's the best performance in this movie, as Deirdre comes off like a bitch, in my opinion. But Jamie Lee Curtis does do a good job in this movie. In fact, hell, everybody turns in great work in this movie, and it's very well made. And kudos to the two directors, Daniel Scheinert, forgive me if I said that wrong, and Daniel Kwan, for making their own multiverse movie the same way Marvel is trying to do it, as is hard to time travel into the multiverse. And what does come out 2 months after this movie? Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Anyways, let's move on. As Wayman asks for more time to pay their taxes by the end of their day, and Deirdre agrees to it and gives their laundromat one more chance, and Evelyn finds out the divorce papers, which made me feel bad for them, while Evelyn punches Deirdre in the face, and security comes and Wayman beats up on the guards with a fanny pack with fish rocks in a hysterical way, as it made me laugh, and it felt very strange too. Deirdre, acting like a monster, looks for Evelyn and Wayman as they hide from her, while Joy and Becky see the IRS office where they're at on the TV. And Evelyn and Wayman leaves Gong Gong somewhere in the office and break room, I'll say, as they try to blend into full security guards, while Wayman tells Evelyn about the multiverse in a way that it makes sense. But I'm no expert in the multiverse, but the script makes it sound genius. Deirdre staples a card on her head, which has got to fucking hurt. As Evelyn and Wayman continue to run and hide from her, as Wayman tries to paper cut his webbing on the fingers in order to fight Deirdre, and oh my god, I had to look away during that scene because it usually scares the shit out of me, as Jackass did something like that in one of the movies. So thanks for making me squeamish, both this movie and Jackass, I'll say. Wayman tells Evelyn to tell Deirdre, "I love you," which is unsuccessful at first, as Deirdre continues to beat the crap out of her, until she tries again and her head thing goes back on as she was successful and looks again at her past and see what she would have became in the multiverse, which is a movie star and living life without Waymond. And we get back as does and she does kung fu on Deirdre, excuse me, right out of the fucking blue. As this movie is over the top weird, but that's what makes this movie good, in my opinion. We get back to the multiverse of Waymond and Evelyn meeting as she was the movie star, and we go back to the cops arresting Evelyn and Jobu Tupaki. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Also played by Stephanie Hishu, enters and beats up the cops with dildos. And I thought, what the fuck was that? As that felt disturbing and inappropriate. But at the same time, it was over the top and fun at the same time. But the score, which is really over the top, and we get a multiverse of where everyone's hands are hot dogs. And we get a spoof of 2001 A Space Odyssey, which is pretty funny, while we get a multiverse from Fingers cheating hole, or creating hole, excuse me. That'll lead to a woman's private area. Please don't make me say it. It's not one of my favorites. As Jobu shows the multiverse that way, which made me a tad bit uncomfortable. Gong Gong turns into a different person who's the multiverse's leader, or universe, whatever the fuck they're calling it, which is completely fucking random. As Joy knocks on the door and Waymond answers the door and Evelyn tapes Joy trapping her up and tells them about the multiverse while bringing up puppets and the Pixar movie Ratatouille, while Alpha Gong Gong wants her to believe that's not her daughter, it's someone else, and Evelyn almost kills Joy, but she cuts her free, which had me worried half to death about. And Alpha Gong Gong points a gun at Evelyn, Waymond, and Joy, and she wants to keep Joy alive. And this sequence was randomly over the top, like I keep bringing up, particularly the Ratatouille reference. And it's gonna come back eventually. And this whole back and forth with the multiverse versus what is rather confusing. So watch this movie a little closer, and you'll get some ideas. Kind of like what I did not as well in the second viewing. I've seen it before. Like, this will be like my 5th or 6th time watching this. I forget. But Evelyn swallows a rock and becomes a badass and beats the shit out of some henchmen and versus some guards. And I can't believe she swallowed a fucking rock, which has got to hurt. God damn. Meanwhile, she sees Debbie and fights her and her dog. And I'm like, oh God, please don't hurt the doggy. As we get Evelyn working at a sushi chef and getting replaced in the multiverse and fights a guy who has a trophy up his ass, and a bird gets to it, and that's another thing I can't believe, as the guard gets powers, and the double team while Evelyn fights them both and gets both trophies out of the enemy's asses. And what the hell is this? Is this becoming a kung fu movie? Because it feels that way. Jobu is about to fight Evelyn as she is all of a sudden vomiting as she barely dies, and we cut to credits, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, this movie isn't supposed to be the ending on this movie. When I first saw this on IMAX, I thought that's bullshit. Evelyn catches her coworker on sushi days where she caught a raccoon on the head, like in Ratatouille, except the difference was it was a rat. And we go back to the hot dog finger world, and we get right back to the beginning of the movie, except it's night and party time, and Jobu takes over, and Joy, and we get a kung fu world versus jail time as a drawing versus pinatas. The real world, where Evelyn punches Jobu in the real world, and explaining to Evelyn about why she wants to kill, and they get sunk down, and the movie can be very confusing as far as where we are goes. And yeah, it's all over the place, but I'm enjoying myself. Don't get me wrong. Evelyn is in the bagel, which will make Jobu show her the real truth, which will lead to the night of the Chinese New Year's party, as Deirdre calls her and Evelyn tells her to shut up. And while Evelyn wakes up to the real world and Deirdre gets them arrested, while she signs the divorce papers and exposes her coworker having a raccoon on his head, and she smashes her laundromat, and I already am confused at this point, as this can be a confusing movie in a way, and it's weird and random, which I guess makes the movie good. But we see Evelyn and Joy as rocks in a canyon, and they're talking to one another and laughing while rocks are not supposed to talk nor laugh. As the subtitles were kind of annoying me during that scene, as this is a good but weird movie in my opinion. Deirdre lets Evelyn go and lets the cops go with her, while I will watch this again for catching thing purposes, while Evelyn goes back to the real world and SWAT team almost kills Evelyn, but Wayman makes everything better and tells everyone to be kind to one another, which is a good message to tell in this movie. Wayman reminds Evelyn in another world that he wants to do laundry and pay taxes with her, which is a sweet message. Jobu wants to keep fighting Evelyn and shows her the hole with the bagel and leaves her behind, and Evelyn catches up with Jobu, and people around them are still trying to kill her. For what fucking reason? I couldn't tell you. And Wayman says no more fighting, and she wants to remember happy times in other universes, and people try to kill Evelyn, but she doesn't let them, as she sees those googly eyes that's been featured in the trailers and in the movie as well, and puts one in her head as well as everybody else's, and tries to get Joy back as her daughter. And at the end of the day, this movie is telling one good message after another. Evelyn decides to help everyone by helping the sushi chef. She works with getting his raccoon back, as she tells him not to give up, as well as everybody else, and wants to get Joy back, but she runs out and says it's better if we go our separate ways. So she stops Jobu, and she keeps fighting and fighting, and everybody helps Evelyn to get Joy back to herself, and decides to let her go, which is something any parent goes through with their kid. And Evelyn decides to cherish the good memories, and Joy hugs Evelyn and sticks around. And we move on to the next day as Joy goes to the IRS with her family and visit Deirdre. And Evelyn tries to pay attention, and this climax is so damn trippy that at the end of the day, it has good messages and weird things going on, I will say. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 8.1 out of 10. It is, in my opinion, over the top, weird, and random, which is what makes the movie good, in my opinion, as it is well made. And kudos to both directors Daniel Scheinert and Daniel Kwan for creating their own multiverse and beating Marvel at 2 months before Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and made this a better movie than that thing, which I remember I gave that one around a 6, whereas this movie is better, which is why I gave it an 8.1 out of 10. The performances by the actress is absolutely tremendous, but Ki Hoi Kwan, he's the best character in this movie, in my opinion, as he should get the Best Supporting Actor trophy at the Oscars, as the movie is fucking over the top along with the score. The movie is smart, funny, and absolutely over the top entertaining, but at the same time uncomfortable, as it did have some great messages, so it's a solid recommendation. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Tar. And until then, and the Oscar goes to